Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. We're going to be taking a closer look at AWS Lambda today.
Very cool.
I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So for anyone who's listening who maybe isn't as familiar with cloud computing,
Right.
could you just give us that sort of
Sure.
basic explanation?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, AWS Lambda lets you run code without having to worry about those pesky servers.
Okay.
You just, upload your code
Hmm.
and AWS handles all the rest.
Wow, so it's like magic.
Kind of, yeah. It
Yeah.
takes care of running it, scaling it up, keeping it all secure.
So no more messing around with server updates and, making
Exactly.
everything.
Yeah. It's like, you just have this magic box that runs your code whenever you need it.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. And you only pay for the compute time that you actually use.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you're not, shelling out money for servers that are just sitting there idle.
Right, that's a huge plus.
Absolutely. And the other big thing is scalability. Like imagine, your website suddenly gets a ton of traffic.
Yeah.
With traditional servers, you'd have to scramble to add more capacity or, your site could crash.
Oh, totally.
But with Lambda, it scales up automatically to handle all that traffic and then scales back down when things calm down.
So it's like a restaurant kitchen that magically expands during the, dinner rush.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So, okay, so we've talked about when it's beneficial, cost efficiency, scalability.
Right.
But in what specific scenarios does Lambda really shine?
Oh, tons of them.
Good.
Like, let's say you have a website where users upload images, like for an online store or something.
Yeah.
You could use Lambda to automatically resize and optimize those images as soon as they're uploaded.
Wow, so it's happening in the background.
Exactly behind the scenes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's all automated, so no manual work needed.
That's amazing. What
Yeah.
about for real-time data?
Oh, Lambda's perfect for that too.
Okay.
Think about analyzing social media trends or website traffic as it's happening.
Okay, yeah.
Lambda can process that continuous stream of data and give you insights in real time.
So it's always on, always analyzing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can react to things as they're happening.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so say I'm convinced I want to start using Lambda.
Oh.
What are some of the key features that make it so powerful?
All right. Well, one of the coolest features is environment variables.
Okay.
And these let you configure your Lambda functions without changing the actual code itself.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like having a set of controls outside of the main program so you can tweak things as needed.
So it's like adjusting settings on your phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can change things like, database connections or API keys without having to touch the core code.
That's really flexible.
It is. And then there's version control.
Okay.
So you can create multiple versions of your Lambda function, like snapshots in time. Yeah, this lets you experiment with new features or bug fixes without affecting the live version that's running for your users.
So you're not going to break anything.
Exactly. It's a safety net.
I like that.
Yeah, and then there's this thing called container images.
Okay, container images.
Yeah, have you heard of those before?
I've heard of them, but I don't really know what they are.
So basically, it's like packing your entire application along with all its dependencies into a neat little container.
Oh.
It's kind of like shipping a self-contained mini application.
So it's like everything it needs to run is in that container.
Exactly, and you can deploy it anywhere that supports containers.
Wow, that's really portable.
It is. It makes it super easy to move your Lambda functions around.
So we've got environment variables, version control, container images.
Yep, those are some of the big ones.
What about security?
Ah, yes, security.
Big deal.
Huge deal, and Lambda takes it very seriously.
Okay.
One of the key features is code signing.
Okay, I've heard of that, but I don't really know how it works.
So think of it as like a digital fingerprint that verifies the authenticity of your code.
Okay.
It helps prevent any malicious code from sneaking into your Lambda functions.
So it's like having a security guard.
Exactly. Yeah, and checking IDs at the door.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it adds an extra layer of protection.
That's great. And for even tighter security, you can use Lambda's private networking capabilities.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So what does that do?
It keeps your Lambda functions tucked away from the public internet,
Okay.
accessible only within your private network.
So it's like having a, secret room for your most sensitive operations.
Exactly like a vault within the cloud.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it gives you very granular control over who can access your functions.
This is already a lot to take in, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right?
There's so much more to explore.
We're just getting started.
We'll be back in the next part of our deep dive to uncover even more about Lambda's capabilities and how they can be used to build incredible applications.
It's going to be awesome.
I can't wait.
Me neither. And we were talking about private networking and, that whole security thing.
Right, yeah, like keeping your Lambda functions safe and sound.
Exactly. And, another really cool feature along those lines is function URLs.
Function URLs.
Okay.
I haven't heard of that one.
So basically, it lets you give each of your Lambda functions its own web address, just like a regular website.
Oh, wow, so it's like turning a function into its own mini web service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes it so much easier to integrate your functions with other web services or, even build serverless microservices.
So I could like build a whole website using just Lambda functions?
Dude, you could totally do that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's pretty powerful stuff.
We've talked a lot about like how Lambda automatically scales, to handle traffic and stuff.
Right.
But are there ever times where you might need like more fine-grained control?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like what if I have, specific performance requirements
Yeah.
or I want to optimize for cost?
Well, Lambda gives you a whole bunch of tools for that. It's called concurrency and scaling controls.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use these to, set limits on how many times your function can run at the same time or reserve capacity in advance. You can even use a feature called provision concurrency to eliminate cold starts and make sure your functions are always ready to go.
So if I have like a time-sensitive application like a flash sale on an e-commerce site or something,
Right.
I can use these controls to make sure my functions are ready to handle that surge in traffic.
Exactly. Yeah, you have a lot of flexibility there to fine-tune things.
That's really cool. Okay, this is getting pretty deep into the technical details, but I'm loving it.
I know, me too.
But speaking of details, we've been talking about code and functions and all that.
Yeah.
What about like files?
Yes, files.
Do Lambda functions have access to a file system?
They do. Yeah, there are a couple of options there.
Okay.
You can use Amazon S3, which is like a giant cloud storage bucket for your files.
Okay.
Or if you need something more like a traditional file system, you can connect your functions to Amazon Elastic File System, or EFS for short.
So it's like having a network drive that my Lambda functions can access.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And EFS is great because it's scalable and highly available and multiple functions can share it.
Oh, that's really convenient.
It is. Yeah. It makes things a lot easier.
And, Java is a pretty popular language for building serverless applications.
Right.
Does Lambda have anything special for Java developers?
It does. Yeah. There's a feature called Lambda Snap Start for Java.
Okay, snap start.
Yeah. And it can really speed up the startup time of your Java functions.
Oh, wow. How does that work?
So basically, it takes a snapshot of your function's initialized state and caches it.
Okay.
And then when the function needs to run, Lambda can just quickly restore that snapshot instead of going through the whole startup process again.
So it's like putting your Java function into hibernation
Yeah.
and then waking it up instantly when you need it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a really clever optimization.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It can make your Java applications lightning fast.
So we've covered a lot of ground here today,
Yeah.
from basic concepts to some pretty advanced features. But what about like, challenges or misconceptions that people might have about Lambda?
Yeah, that's a good point.
What are some of those?
Well, one common misconception is that Lambda is only for simple applications.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's not true at all. You can build some really complex enterprise-grade applications using Lambda.
Okay.
It's just about, designing your architecture effectively and taking advantage of all the different tools and services that AWS has to offer.
So it's more about like a shift in thinking, embracing this serverless mindset.
Exactly. Yeah, and another challenge that some people run into is monitoring and debugging Lambda functions.
Right.
Because it's a different paradigm from traditional server-based applications.
Yeah, I could see that.
So you have to kind of adapt your tools and techniques. But the good news is that AWS provides a lot of great tools for monitoring logging and tracing your Lambda functions.
Okay, so there's a bit of a learning curve.
There is, yeah. But the benefits of Lambda definitely outweigh the challenges.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. I'm really starting to grasp the power of AWS Lambda and how it can change the way we build and deploy applications.
Yeah, it's a game changer for sure.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into AWS Lambda.
It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, it really has.
Yeah,
We've covered so much ground,
we have.
learned about all these amazing features,
Right.
seen how Lambda can be used in so many different ways.
It's a pretty versatile tool.
It is. And now I'm kind of like, thinking about the future.
Yeah.
Like, where does all this lead?
That's the big question, right?
It is, what does the future hold for serverless computing with Lambda at the forefront?
Well, I think we're just scratching the surface.
You think so?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, as more and more developers embrace this serverless model, we're going to see an explosion of creativity and innovation.
So we can expect even more powerful features and use cases for Lambda down the line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine a world where serverless becomes the standard for building everything you know, from simple web apps to complex enterprise systems.
Wow, that's a big shift.
It is, but I think it's coming. And as the tools and the ecosystem around Lambda continue to evolve, it's going to become even easier and more accessible for developers of all skill levels.
It's
It's like,
exciting.
it is, yeah. It's like democratizing software development,
Yeah.
empowering anyone with an idea to bring it to life.
I love that idea, breaking down those barriers.
Exactly. Yeah, and AWS Lambda is leading the way.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
I agree.
I've learned so much,
Me too.
and I'm really excited about the future of serverless computing.
Me too. It's a really exciting time to be a developer.
It is. And to our listeners out there, we encourage you to dive in and explore AWS Lambda further.
Yes, definitely.
It might seem daunting at first, but trust us, it's more accessible than you think.
There are tons of resources available online, tutorials, documentation, blog posts.
And a vibrant community of developers who are always willing to help.
Absolutely. So don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, push
Yeah.
the boundaries of what's possible.
Who knows? You might just create the next groundbreaking application that changes the world.
That's the dream right there.
It is. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AWS Lambda.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey and are as excited about the future of serverless computing as we are.
And until next time, keep learning, keep innovating, and keep exploring the vast world of knowledge and information.